A suicide epidemic is threatening the future of a prominent Native American tribe. In just 5 months, 9 people between the ages of 12 and 24 have committed suicide on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. In response, the president of the Oglala Sioux Tribe declared a state of emergency. I recently sat down with Native American journalist Simon Moya-Smith. He's a member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe and recently returned from a visit to the Pine Ridge Reservation. Simon, welcome to Rise America. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Let's start with the big picture. Paint a picture for me of the prevalence of suicide, particularly among young people on reservations in Native American communities.
Yeah, well, suicide is for Native American kids, they are 2.5 times more likely to commit suicide. And not just kids. I don't want to just say like teenagers. It goes into their 20s. So like one of the most recent was 23. So suicide is unfortunately not just on Pine Ridge. You can find it on so many other reservations.
And it is fair to point out that the attempts for suicide is higher amongst young people in the general population than other ages. And so there is some correlation there. Let's now talk specifically about the Pine Ridge Reservation.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about life there.
Well, it's really isolated. I mean, the closest city is Rapid City, but that's going to take you about an hour and a half to get there. And then when you get there, you're not going to find like big buildings. You're not going to find a Starbucks. You're not going to find a Taco Bell. You won't even find a McDonald's. So there's nothing out there that you would expect to find in maybe a suburb that's, you know, far off from, say, Denver. So you're going to find mostly isolation, and then you're going to find dilapidated housing. You're going to find a lot of stray dogs. You're going to find a lot of the consequence of Indian removal. And I think that's really important to notice. When we talk about reservations, people aren't asking, what is a reservation? Well, a reservation was a place where Native Americans were expected to go and die, like Auschwitz. So it was a prison camp. That was the idea. We'll put all Indians in one spot and they will die there. And that's not what happened. It actually became a bastion for our languages, our culture, our elders.
Yeah, absolutely. So what specifically is it about life and lifestyle in Pine Ridge that might explain these dramatic spikes in suicide attempts?
Well, right now, I mean, I spoke with a family member on Pine Ridge today, and nobody knows why this spike is happening right now. I mean, nothing has changed on the reservation, so it's not like something specific happened that to justify this spike. But you're talking about an environment where women are 2.5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted. Native Americans are more likely to die at the hands of cops than people of any other race.
Including African Americans.
Including African Americans. So when these kids leave, you know, their household, and maybe they're leaving because mom's a drunk, or maybe they're leaving because there's sexual assault, but when they go out the door, they're not really welcomed into a very welcoming world, especially if you're a young woman going off, you know, the reservation. And these kids feel like they have no hope, but we're trying to show them that there is hope.
You made reference to something very specific, which has been covered in the media quite a bit, and that is alcoholism amongst Native Americans has been a persistent problem for a long time. Can you talk to me about, you know, why these societal ills seem to plague tribes on reservations so much? Alcoholism, depression, of course, a suicide attempt, poverty, and as you even mentioned, domestic abuse. You know, what is it? It's not the people. What is it about the circumstance?
And that's the question. Why? So the why is kind of scary for people, because when you look at the why a reservation exists, if you look at the why for the plight of Native Americans, you're really looking at the United States. We didn't put ourselves on reservations. We didn't isolate ourselves. We didn't put ourselves in poverty. To look at the situation of the reservation without looking at what the United States did only gives you the surface. It doesn't give you the context. That's just like reporting.
So let me jump in right there then. What is not being done on behalf of society or as it relates to the federal government to address these issues?
Healing. There's no recognition of what the United States did to Native Americans. Again, we're 5.2 million in our own country.
I'm only pushing you because we're going to run out of time. And what does that look like? Is that reparations? Is that more government funding? What does that look like? What does healing look like?
Taking responsibility for what the United States did, for not only saying they're sorry, but, you know, standing in solidarity with Native Americans, not just saying, okay, we'll get to you.
And how would that make a difference? You're Native American, although you grew up in, quote unquote, the mainstream society, you still have very deep roots in your Native American culture. As a Native American that has lived, well, I like to say biculturally, understanding two different cultures, what difference would that make for you as a Native American to be seen, to be recognized in the way that you just described?
I mean, that would be powerful. I didn't walk in here with a feather. I didn't walk in here in a loincloth. I mean, that's going to take a huge cultural shift on America's part, not on ours.
And finally, very quickly, what's being done to address the suicide spike, or what should be done?
Well, I think right now the Native American community is kind of reaching out to people and saying, look, what we need is a little bit of help from the Obama administration, especially when it comes, I mean, he said he has an emotional interest in Native Americans. Well, we don't hear anything from the White House yet, or at least in the past couple of weeks when this report came out. I mean, we haven't heard anything. I mean, really, come and help us out. We're the forgotten people in this country.
So just to be remembered.
Yeah, recognized.
Simon Moya-Smith, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
It's good to see you.